So yeah, thanks for speaking with me. Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
basically, so I guess in summary, I I see like this like massive civilian casualty, um,
Hmm.
as a result of the war that Israel
Right.
is waging in Gaza. Um, I
Hmm.
think we'll have an understanding. I don't think it's a genocide. I don't think it's, indiscriminate killing, right? But um,
Hmm.
regardless, the toll just seems to be so high that I don't. Yeah, yeah, on the face of it, the goals don't really seem worth that human cost. So that's my position. Yeah. And by the goals, I
Yeah.
take that to be both rescuing the hostages and more primarily destroying Hamas.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure I can quote, but I think Sam Harris has talked about this as well. Um, and basically the idea is just that, like, suppose Israel decides to just say, okay, we're not gonna pursue this operation anymore. We are just unconditionally withdrawing. We don't care about the hostages. You can keep them or whatever. But we're just like ending the operation, and they just retract back into the um, within the borders of Israel proper or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, so think of what's gonna happen if every battle that the idea is that one side, which is like Hamas, is just absolutely okay with hiding behind civilians and hiding behind hostages and firing, and one side is just unwilling to fire at civilians, even if that's sort of the only way to um, get to Hamas or whatever. So so if you read like the Hamas charter or whatever, uh, their goals are pretty clear. Their goal is to basically get rid of Israel proper and turn all of that into Palestine. So they're very clear
Sorry,
about.
uh, I'm kind of a noob on this topic, so what's the Hamas charter? Is that something you could send to me?
Oh, it's basically like it's sort of like an internal document, but uh, uh, it's sort of like a mission or like a um, whatever their goals are. Like it's an official Hamas document. So I can send that to you. It's sort of like a manifesto, so it's like stuff they want to achieve, stuff they will be working towards achieving.
Is this the
um,
2017 Hamas charter or the 1988?
I am not sure, but I think both Hamas charters list the main goal. Let me check.
Because there's two, and I don't know. It says,
Yeah, we'll go with the latest one, right?
okay, yeah.
But yeah, even if you go with the latest, I think the only change they made was to like alter a bit of language here and there. Uh, but I don't think they have withdrawn um, from the goal of turning Israel proper into Palestine, because this has also been restated by what's that guy? Um, there are like two, there are two people who are often brought up in as leaders of Hamas. There's this. Wait 1 second. Let me see if I can find him. One is Ismail Haniyeh, and the other I don't remember. There are two guys. Okay. Uh,
Khaled Mashal?
Basically the mili. Sorry, what?
Khaled Mashal?
No, no, not that guy. So the guy is sort of the military head of Hamas. I
Okay.
don't remember his name, but he has appeared in many interviews, and recent interviews after October 7th. And he has reiterated that the goal of Hamas is to basically take over all of Israel proper and turn it into
Yeah.
Palestine.
Well,
That's
I don't,
yeah.
yeah, I agree with you anyway. So that's their goal. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So the thing is, if Israel chooses to, you know, retract um, from Gaza and all the places that they've invaded right now as part of the on-ground campaign, I don't think that's going to stop the conflict. Um, at best, what it'll do is shift the battlefield from Palestine, um, and I don't know, like if Hamas is serious about that goal, which I think they are, if they are willing to walk into the borders of Israel and start shooting at people. Um, yeah, if they are serious about that goal, they're gonna continue attacking Israel anyway. And it seems a bit weird to suggest that a country should just allow those attacks to happen and do very minimum with respect to um, you know ensuring that that doesn't happen. um, and also it's the civilian casualty. I'm not convinced that the civilian casualty is going to go down. At best, what's going to happen is it's going to shift from Gaza to Israel. Like uh, people are going to die anyway because Hamas is going to attack Israel anyway. um,
so sorry, just to clarify that claim, you think that the same amount of civilians will die if Israel uh, stops its attack on Gaza?
no, I am not. I wouldn't go ahead and say that the same amount would die,
Just that
but
civilians will die.
yeah, just some non-trivial amount of civilians would die. It's not like some two or three people are gonna die or something like that. Some non-trivial amount of civilians are gonna die, um, and I suspect it'll be lower because um, well, I'm not completely sure about this, but I suspect Israel is not gonna be hiding behind the civilians or whatever, like building their base of operations beneath civilian housing facilities and residential areas,
Yeah, of course.
um, which is what Hamas is doing. Um, so, like from the perspective of Israel, I just don't see any alternative to this. If if the goal is to rescue hostages and if the goal is to get rid from us, like they have kind of have to pursue this operation until one of those goals is achieved. There is also another thing that uh, Hamas is present in the West Bank, um, but I'm not sure if West Bank is um, as hostile to Israel, like in the sense that there are like as many rockets being fired from West Bank as compared to like Gaza.
Right.
Um, so yeah, like from like a military perspective, and even so, the thing is, it's just that you are so there are two sides. One side is just not hesitant to hide behind civilians and take refugees and hide behind hostages and take behind refugees, and in the other side you have a military which, at least it seems to be the case, that they are being very discriminate about who they are killing, even though they are and even though some civilians are dying. So on one side you have like yeah, like on the other side you have like an army which is trying to be as discriminate as possible given the circumstances and ensuring less civilians die. Um, this doesn't mean that it's the best state of affairs or whatever. Maybe there could be some more precise way of doing it that I'm not aware of, and the military themselves is not aware of. But yeah, so like that's part of why I don't think they should stop the campaign. I would be in favor of them, finding if there are ways to um, minimize civilian casualties. But yeah, given that a lot of this Hamas infrastructure is sort of built built beneath residential areas and stuff like that. I'm not really sure how they'll be avoiding this.
Of course. I guess I just sort of question um, why it would matter. Like, you know, yeah, let's say there's a bunch of like angry Hamas militants that are going to keep trying to get rid of, you know, Israel. Like, do you think they really have the ability to? Like, Israel has the Iron Dome, they have the support of the US. They seem to have so much more power that I wonder, like, okay, if Hamas hates them, it is it really going to matter? Isn't Israel more than capable of defending itself?
Defending themselves again, like in what sense? Like in the sense that um, they could prevent like rockets being fired or something like that.
Well, not prevent them being fired, but prevent them from landing in Israel.
Oh, yeah. So they are quite capable in that regard. They have the Iron Dome or whatever. But the thing is, Iron Dome doesn't. Uh, like people still die, even though there is Iron Dome because yeah, like Iron Dome is not completely impervious to rockets. It's still way better than not having it. Um, but yeah, like people still die. But I'm not talking about that kind of defense. Like I'm talking about sort of like suicide bombings and stuff like that. So even if you have like an Iron Dome, what's the army going to do if there's like a guy in like a crowded area who, who blows himself off and kills like a few hundred people or something like that?
Right.
So
I might just look up. Yeah, I might just look up how many Israelis have died. Um, uh,
I think Avi has even included the first and second Intifada which happened in his graph.
I don't know, like what? So 2004 to 2014, 20 Israelis, 27. Okay, so it's about less than 40 um, people have like died from Palestinian rocket attacks.
From
Although,
rocket attacks, yeah. But
although,
the second, for example, the second Intifada, I think into 2000 2005 like thousand like 1,000 Israelis um, died,
okay,
and that's like so six around 650 to 700 civilians
right,
were killed
okay,
by Palestinians. Yeah,
that's obviously significant. Uh,
yeah. So it's not just the rocket attacks; it's also the on ground like uh, riots or suicide bombings, which are also to be incorporated into the calculation.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I totally agree. That's obviously very important to consider. Okay, right. So, yeah, do you think it would be possible for Israel to prevent these suicide bombings? If they had like rigorous, scanning at their borders?
I am not sure. In fact, I am leaning towards like I'm well. I have I think they would be, but I have very low confidence, and the low confidence is because of the intelligence failure that happened during October 7th attacks.
Hmm.
Uh, so people just literally walked across the border and they didn't know about it. It's like really weird. Um, Yeah, like imagine something like that happening in India and Pakistan. Like that's just something I
Yeah.
don't think is gonna happen. But
So
yeah,
wasn't there a,
people.
I believe there was a failure on part of the IDF to properly man the borders on October 7th. Is that not correct?
Yeah, that's one of the things that they didn't man the borders properly. And secondly, it's also like an intelligence failure in other regards, I guess, with respect to finding, there are like intelligence agencies which send spies and stuff to work within Hamas undercover and
Right,
try
yeah.
to figure out. Yeah. So it's an intelligence as well. Um, that they haven't like sent spies and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So
And I
given the
suppose like
intelligence failure,
even if Israel
mhm,
did everything like basically perfectly, if we consider human
mhm.
error, there are going to be events.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So I
But
just
yeah,
think, I don't know, like we have to obviously consider like, if Hamas is going to kill like one Israeli civilian in the next 10 years, then it's probably not worth killing 30,000 Gazans. Would you agree with that?
uh, if Hamas is gonna kill one. Okay, yeah, I'd probably sign off on that.
But you think at the current rate that Israeli civilians are being killed, then that essentially justifies killing 30,000 Gazan civilians. And if
No, but I think the expected number of civilians which will die if they didn't carry out um, the operation. That's what's making me lean in the opposite.
oh right, so not the current amount that are being sorry, not the
Right.
current amount of Israelis that are being killed, but the expected amount if Israel was not continuing its current operation.
Yeah,
Right.
if they didn't carry out the current operation and if Hamas is actually serious about their
So you
goals, which
presumably
is
that would include like um, Israeli civilians that are killed like 100 years from now if Israel decided to just not engage with Hamas, or or is there like a specific
yeah, like
timeline?
whatever is the no, I don't think there's gonna be like a specific timeline. Even if the like yeah, it's like whatever timeline we're gonna constrain it to, like I'm just gonna apply the same timeline for Gaza.
Okay, yeah, that's
Um
that's fair.
so, yeah, so if I'm gonna say in the next 10 years, how many people are expected to be killed if the operation is halted? Um and in the same period of 10 years, how many civilians are expected to be killed, um, given that um, the operation continues? But it's also to be noted that we can sort of look at the increases in relative risks. So I think when the operation started, the relative risk was like, I don't know, 15 or something, 15 or 16. But then as the numbers got updated, I think it's now 36 or something. I don't remember the last
What, 36?
number.
Okay, wow. So
Yeah,
Israel's becoming a lot more targeted.
right. A lot
Yeah.
more precise and surgical in their approach,
Yeah,
if
last
that
time
makes
I
sense.
saw it was like around 20. So it's,
Yeah,
wow, almost double.
yeah. So it's yeah. So like we can probably make a very weak statistical model of this to see like how like what's the projected relative risk, and then we can probably back calculate the number of civilians that are expected to die.
Okay.
Um, so yeah. So if Israel becomes even more discriminate, given more time, we would need to add that to the calculation as well. What I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going on Avi's Twitter to look for it now, but yeah, I mean, I guess if it's gone up to 36, that does sway my intuitions a fair bit. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I think I found the latest ratio that
yeah, if you could just link me,
uh,
that'd be appreciated. I'm so bad at navigating Twitter. It's
yeah, so it's the latest is 35.6, so close
wow.
enough.
Okay, wow. Yeah, okay, wow. Yeah, that's very different. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, would you agree that hypothetically, um, if so, if Israel achieved its goals, wait,
Hmm.
sorry, let me think. Um, okay. Basically, one other concern I have about continuing this conflict is like I'm not sure like what long-term strategy will be put into place to ensure that another group like Hamas doesn't just resurface. Because if
Oh,
like
yeah.
if they complete their mission successfully, right, and then
Right.
Hamas just comes back, well then it seems like
Yeah,
we've just
Hamas
killed
2.0.
30,000 civilians for. Yeah, I mean they have backing from like Arab nations, so it seems like these militant groups would always be incentivized to resurface.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if Israel even has like a planning for that. Um, yeah, because like the current focus seems to just be well, according to Israel's like I think the official documents, the primary goal is to rescue the hostages, and the secondary goal is to get rid of Hamas. I'm actually not sure, even if they want to. So I don't think they want to get rid of Hamas in the sense that they want to kill every single militant or whatever. I think what they are aiming for is a bit more modest. They are aiming for something like um, ensure basically neutralizing Hamas to the point that they wouldn't be able to launch like rocket attacks, at least for the foreseeable. Well, not just rocket attack, any kind of attacks on the state of Israel, at least in the foreseeable future. And so,
I mean,
even if you think about like, yeah,
but
go ahead.
how? How are they going to prevent that?
Oh, basically destroying all their base of operations, seizing all of their equipment, seizing all of their documentation, seizing all of their computers and stuff, um, getting as many Hamas militants either killed or arrested or whatever. Um, so basically, strip away all of these resources till that, so such that at least for the foreseeable future, they wouldn't be able to build back to the point of being able to launch another attack. And of course, like this is a short-term plan. Maybe in the long term, they would have further plans, like in tightening up their intelligence. I don't know. This is stuff that I would do if I was part of like the army or something like that, of the IDF. Um, so the yeah, basically seizing all the resources and then making like having like stronger intelligence agencies. Um, yeah, and
Right.
even helping Palestinians in some way, so as to like you know sort of do away with the Israel is a monster kind of attitude that people have over there. Um, so that's sort of the stuff that I would do. I'm not sure what IDF is planning.
So, would you say if Israel had no long-term plan, like they're going to do this and then they're just going to sort of leave Gaza, then Israel should stop its offensive, or would you say Israel should continue its offensive?
Wait, I didn't get the question. Who would leave Gaza?
Okay, so if Israel has no long-term plan, such
Hmm.
that after this after this operation, the IDF just leaves Gaza,
Hmm.
and presumably Hamas will come back. Would you
Hmm.
say that Israel should stop its offensive, or would you say it should still keep going, even if it has no long-term plan?
Oh, I I'm not sure why. So I would say that they should just continue the operation. Uh, but yeah, like I don't think the lack of a future plan is particularly motivating me to say that they should stop. But
Okay,
yeah, I would like it if they have a future plan, and just like by nature of running an army, I think they would be planning. Um,
okay, so yeah, I
yeah.
wonder, like, we can table that for the moment. Maybe we can talk about what Israel would do after the operation, but if we just
Yeah.
assume they're going to do nothing, uh, I'm,
Hmm.
I'm like, I guess I'm very surprised to hear you say you think they should still continue. I wonder, basically, what would be the point, right? I suppose they could rescue the hostages, but beyond that,
Hmm.
um, like if they would destroy Hamas, but Hamas would come back. So would it be? You think they should continue just to rescue the hostages,
Not just to rescue the hostages, but also like incapacitate Hamas for the foreseeable future,
even if it's temporary?
even if it's temporary. Yeah, like even if they ensure like Hamas doesn't resurface for like 10 or 20 years or something like that, that should be good enough.
Hmm. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to think about it. I guess it just doesn't seem intuitive to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. So in order to incapacitate Hamas for the next 20 years, you would say it's essentially worth killing like 30,000 Gazan civilians?
Oh wait, come again?
So tell me if I've understood you right here, but um, in order to incapacitate Hamas for the next 20 years, you think that is worth killing 30,000 Gazan civilians?
Well, if you put it that way, so the idea is that these civilians aren't like being killed in the sense that Israel is walking into their houses and shooting at them, right? They're sort of dying as collateral damage. So yeah, like I would rather that they continue the operation, and yeah, even if it means that they would incapacitate Hamas for like 20 years.
Hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess I just disagree. I wonder, is there some way you can convince me?
Uh well, so yeah, maybe
Maybe
we
if
can
you
look
can
at
give
like
me,
the
sorry.
yeah. So like imagine if like they don't um, do the operation, right? Let's suppose they withdraw completely back into Israel proper, and Hamas continues to function as it is in the current state, and it gets stronger because it's getting funding from other nations as well, and so it grows to be stronger in the West Bank, and it grows to be stronger in Gaza. Um, oh, by the way, I should also point out that there are quite yeah, there could be like rights violations that Hamas themselves is committing um, on the civilians, because I think Avi was talking about like the food supply that's being sent into Gaza or something like that. Some of that being redirected to Hamas
Right.
when the targets were like Palestinian civilians. I would
Mhm.
actually view that as a rights violation if they took away food
Uh,
from like starving populations.
I agree that's a rights violation, but
Mhm.
um, look, I have things to say about that, but I don't want us to get sidetracked. So maybe,
Yeah, yeah, I get. Yeah.
yeah, maybe can we just, because I have things to say about it. Maybe can we just ignore the stealing food thing?
Hmm.
Or we can either go into it and then come back to this, or we can
Yeah,
not factor
I
that
guess
in.
we can. So the reason I brought that up is to just suggest that yeah, Hamas is like if they withdraw, Hamas is just gonna be is gonna rebuild all the resources it lost in this operation, and it's gonna be back. Um, Maybe it will even increase its footing in the West Bank. Definitely increase its footing in in Gaza. Um, and suppose they launch terror attacks on Israel. Israel is going to be in a position where it would have to um, do something about Gaza anyway, because they're firing rockets from Gaza. Um, Even if you do the Iron Dome thing, um, like they're gonna drop bombs on Gaza
Yeah,
anyway. But
I accept
assuming
that
they,
there would be Israeli deaths. You've convinced me of that.
yeah, yeah. So there would be deaths on that side for sure. But the other thing is that assuming we withdraw from Gaza to prevent the civilian deaths or whatever, which also means that we there will no longer be any airstrikes in Gaza, because the whole point of withdrawing from the campaign was to be is to like spare the civilians, right? So
Yeah,
no more airstrikes into like Hamas dens or whatever, wherever they're firing rockets from. So rockets are gonna come anyway. And suppose there's also gonna be like suicide bombings and stuff like that. Um, yeah. So what do we? So if the reverse happens, if Hamas lays siege to Israel, um, I don't actually expect them to be discriminate towards um, discriminate against militants, because the whole point is to take over Israel proper. So they're going
sure,
to be
I
killing.
agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's going to be so if we take even if we take like, for example, what's the relative risk of the, one sec, um Palestine. Okay, the first Intifada was 6. The second Intifada was like 3.8, and the Al-Aqsa flood of October 7th was 3.5. So even if we take something like a relative risk of 6, which means more, um, it's more likely for a militant to die relative to a civilian. Um, there's still gonna be like maybe way more. Wait, let me. What do you know if what the populations of Israel versus Gaza is?
Well, Gaza is about 2 million. I'd have to look up Israel population. Uh, looks like Israel.
Uh, nine
Uh,
million.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah, almost ten million.
it's around,
9,842,000.
yeah, and around basically the vast majority of that population is gonna be Jewish.
Yeah.
Um, and given that Hamas is particularly like anti-Jewish, like even if you think about like a relative, even if you take the highest relative risk, which is of 6, you can sort of back calculate the amount of civilians that are gonna die, and I think like just
Right,
looking
but I
at
can
it
agree
objectively, I
that
think more civilians will die.
Hamas invading Israel would be worse than Israel invading Gaza, but sorry, I just don't see how that justifies the current situation going on at all, because it's not as if they didn't do this current operation, then Hamas would invade Israel.
Well, that's the goal of Hamas, right?
Right, but like, sorry, so wait, so are you saying that like if Israel doesn't continue this operation, Hamas will invade Israel?
Well, I'm not sure, but
Because that just
yeah, like
seems
if
it just seems so unrealistic because Israel is such a vastly more powerful military.
right, but then October 7th happened, right?
Yeah, true, but it was one day and it was relatively brief and obviously
Yeah, like
horrific.
I don't expect Hamas to like launch a full ground, like on ground operation like Israel.
Like maybe there would
But
be multiple October 7th, but I don't think there would
there'll be,
be.
yeah, multiple October 7th, or just like the first and second Intifada, like yeah.
Right, yeah, but it's not as if like the 9 million Israelis would be killed or anything like that.
No. I'm not. I wouldn't commit myself to saying that all 9 million of them are gonna be killed or something like that.
Okay,
But yeah,
just that the
yeah, like
ones
if you're talking about like 30,000 civilians in Gaza, I expect it. Like if an attack was to be launched in Israel, um, I'd expect them to match those numbers, if not exceed them.
you would expect that they would that sorry. So if Israel does not continue its current population, over
Mhm.
30,000 Israeli civilians will be killed.
Oh no, I'm not saying they will be killed, but there is that there's some chance that they would be killed.
It's some high likelihood. Is that what you're saying?
Not well, not a high likelihood. It doesn't have to be like greater than 50% or something like that, but enough to like even if it is like so even if it's less than 50%, there could be some threshold where uh, that even that so for example, if I want to illustrate that, so let's say there was like a 1 in 100 chance that if you eat broccoli, your head would explode. Um, yeah, like if someone, even if there was like a 1% chance, uh, it's enough to make me not want to eat broccoli.
Hmm. Well,
So
I'm
even if the
actually,
likelihood
yeah.
is, yeah.
I was just going to say that I'm actually eating broccoli as we speak. Uh, so you're terrifying me. But
How did
uh,
I come to know that you're eating broccoli?
yeah, bro, you've hacked into my camera. Okay, right, but you think there is some likelihood, maybe not 50%, but
Yeah,
presumably like more than a
some,
one. You think there's like more than a 1 or 2% chance, right? You think that maybe there's like a
yeah,
thirty
something like
thirty
that.
percent chance.
Oh no, no, I'm not sure. Maybe there's like a 10.
Ten
It
percent
stands for the
chance.
freedom of
Oh,
scrolling. Yeah, 10. Yeah.
so so if Israel stops its current population, sorry, current operation, you think there's like a 10% chance that that 30,000 civilians would die. Sorry, so
Something like that.
I think we've got a little sidetracked because the actual
Yeah,
the thing I was questioning was if Israel has no long-term plan, right? So if Israel has
right.
no long-term plan, wouldn't that happen anyway? Wouldn't maybe it wouldn't happen for 10 years, but afterwards there
Hmm.
would just be another October 7th.
Yeah, I think there would be.
So then
But I
if the
also don't
reason to
expect
continue
Israel
the
to
op
not have a long-term plan.
right, but okay, we can talk about whether they do, but right now we're assuming they
Hmm.
don't have a long-term plan, right?
Right,
So if your reason
right,
for
right.
them continuing the operation is that if they don't, if they stop the operation, there'll be more October 7ths. Yet, even if they continue the operation, there'll be more October 7ths. Then that reason doesn't seem sound because it will apply in
Oh,
both
right. So
circumstances.
when right, right. So when I said that, I think I'm implicitly sort of assuming that they are doing this to sort of buy time to chalk out a long-term plan. Whether they do currently have a long-term plan or not is not um, is not relevant.
Okay,
But I
right,
think, oh,
but if we're
yeah,
but just under the assumption that they have no long-term plan, would you take back your previous
and
statement?
they wait under the assumption that they have no long-term plan and they have no intention of chalking out a long-term plan.
Yeah, if we just assume that, we can talk about whether that's true in a second, but if we just
Yeah,
assume
yeah,
that,
sure.
then would you take back your previous statement?
Well, I would I take it back because well, I said that because I was assuming that they don't currently have a plan, and they would eventually come up with a plan. So I guess what I said before still stands, but just that the question sort of has changed, right?
Yeah, I guess that's fair, right? So, because your statement was about the previous question, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but I would say, I mean, look, I don't want to be too pedantic, but I would say you misunderstood my previous question. Maybe I just didn't
Oh
communicate
yeah,
it well
maybe.
enough. But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So maybe just if you could give a new answer to like my previous question, then.
Yeah, sure. So if they have no long-term plan and if they have no long-term plan and they will not come up with a long-term plan in the time they've got by completing the operation, then yeah, I would rather that they stop the operation.
Okay, okay, right, okay. So it sounds like we agree there at least.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so like I agree, it would make sense. Like probably the IDF is thinking of a plan. Um,
Hmm.
I don't actually think they're just going to not have any long-term plan. but I guess at the
Yeah, it
moment,
seems very unlikely for a military to just have no plan for
hmm,
like the next 20 years or something.
but I would, I guess I haven't seen one or heard of one. I don't know if it's like possible to just prevent Hamas. Like, how would they? What would a like a long-term plan look like? Is that even like a feasible thing? So just to get just to I'll briefly finish up. Like
Hmm.
if I guess I'm basically operating under those assumptions I gave you that they have no long-term plan. And
Hmm.
under those assumptions, it sounds like we both agree though that the offensive should stop. Um,
Right.
but you don't share those assumptions. So I'm wondering if you could talk to me
Right.
about why you don't share those assumptions.
Uh, well, I'm just basically thinking about any military, for example. Um, I don't think all of their efforts are concentrated towards this one or this one offensive. Israel is a pretty strong military.
Sorry.
And
Let me clarify the question a little. Um,
yeah,
I'm accepting that they like want to have a plan and have some like I guess think tank directed towards it. It's just
right.
like, is it possible? Like, what would the plan look like? Is what I'm asking. Because if they
Oh,
have a
what would the
plan
plan look
and the
like? Yeah.
plan is and the plan is like just ineffective, then obviously that would be similarly pointless. But yeah, I want to know what the plan would
Right,
look
right. I
like.
see what you mean. So I am not sure what they're planning, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I can.
obviously I'm not expecting you to have like insider
Yeah,
IDF knowledge. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but hey, like if I were put in charge, I would plan some kind of like so I would so once this is done, once the operation is done, as the military is withdrawing um, from Gaza and all the areas that it has invaded, I would also send
Sorry,
in.
sorry, I couldn't quite
Uh,
hear that. Could you repeat that?
oh yeah, so once all of this operation is done and dusted and Hamas is sort of neutralized to the point of not being able to attack for like 10 years or something like that. um I would also like and so yeah if I were put in charge, I would attempt to sort of de-radicalize the area in some way,
Hmm.
maybe by sending in help, sending in financial aid, sending in like food, um, sending other kind of like educational people who would educate the people over there, some kind of de-radical no, so I'm not an expert on how to de-radicalize a population,
Okay,
um
but you think
but
that
yeah,
Israel, if you were in charge, you would put in some kind of effort to de-radicalize people.
to de-radicalize people over there, and to sort of you know make that impression that people over there have, that Israel is like an occupier state and stuff like that. um yeah, there will be efforts to de-radicalize that. Just give me a sec.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. What was I saying?
Um, that you would, if you were in charge, you would put an effort into de-radicalize the Gazan population.
Right, yeah, so that is one of the things I do. So I don't know how that's done, so I'm not sure I can elaborate on that.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, so some effort to de-radicalize, some effort to sort of open up talks with the non-Hamas representatives of Palestinians, uh, in order to make sure that um, they have like a um, yeah, like the sort of the interests of Palestinian civilians are um, you know made clear and addressed.
Okay.
Um, And yeah, basically anything to restore the two-state status quo thing going, and maybe even some
Sorry, the
effort to
two
see,
state something. What were you saying?
yeah, the two-state status quo, like
Oh, status
the
quo.
two
Yeah,
states
yeah,
to, yeah, yeah, basically the two-state solution. um so yeah, so some effort towards that. Yeah, so maintaining the two-state status quo, and maybe finding a way to um, not isolate. So Gaza is sort of isolated from the rest of West Bank.
yeah,
So there, yeah. So maybe I think even Avi has talked about this. So some kind of like geographical exchange.
yeah. It sounds
Maybe
like
Israel would
Avi
give
thinks
up
there should be a like a land exchange. Like
a
they should
land
stop the
exchange, something.
settlements and uh,
Yeah.
give the West Bank back and then expand it.
Right. So they would sort of give up some land in Israel proper and move into Gaza or something like that. Um, but to be honest, I'm not sure that that'll be particularly successful. Uh, it's yeah, like people if they're born in Gaza and they've lived there their entire lives, it's kind of,
Yeah, they don't want to
yeah, like
move.
I wouldn't yeah, they don't want to move. Yeah. If
Yeah, I
somehow
know
they're
some
able to
people.
convince them, that'll be nice, but I
Yeah,
just don't see that happening.
some people propose a three-state solution. Would you support that if it was like an option?
Oh, like Gaza, Israel, and West Bank.
Yeah, three independent states.
Oh, I am not sure because um yeah, Gaza is a bit too small to like be an entire country, right? Or
Oh,
are there countries that are smaller than Gaza?
oh well, there's like like Tunisia, but yeah, okay. I guess I take the point. Um,
Yeah, like you like, well,
oh,
it's
not
also like a,
Tunisia. I'm thinking of there's some like tiny there's like some tiny country. Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah,
But yeah, like in order for them to like have a be like big enough to have like a country of themselves, like they like, do they have like the for example, the soil to cultivate crops to sustain themselves? Because
right,
even
right.
if they form a country on paper, they would probably be dependent on the West Bank or Israel for a lot of their stuff. um and that could, yeah, I don't know, yeah, that could create problems.
Sure. Well, let's table that because we don't. Two or three state solution is just sort of not too
Right.
relevant to the topic. Um, how would you manage the challenge of like obviously de-radicalizing the Gazan civilians would be difficult. Like one thing people are likely to say is like, oh, this current operation is just going to radicalize more civilians because like obviously people's will have their entire families destroyed, and it's a bit hard to imagine, even if it's like irrational. Like obviously the Israeli civilians are not at fault. It is a bit hard to imagine that like somebody who's had like their children killed by the IDF um, as collateral damage would ever really be tolerant of uh,
Yeah. So
yeah,
maybe you're right about like the older population, but my target population would sort of be the younger generation.
right, okay, so
So
you would
the thing is,
all
one
yeah,
of the infrastructures of Hamas. So yeah, one of the tools of Hamas is like the schools they run and the um, whatever they teach in the schools, right? So
Hmm.
part of the radicalization comes from the schools that are teaching young kids to be radicalized against Israel. So when Hamas stops, that would also stop. Uh, so there would be some counter measures. So counter radicalization efforts on top of the, you know, now eliminated radicalization that is going on.
Right. Okay. Um, suppose the other question I have is like, so Israel will put some sort of counter radicalization measures in, but do you think it's plausible that like countries such as Iran will be actively seeding and uh, trying to perpetuate radicalization? And if so, how would the IDF be able to overcome that?
Oh, I'm sure it's possible they would do that because they've done it in
Sorry,
the
do you think
past.
it's likely that?
Oh,
Yeah,
is it likely? Well, I'm not sure if it's likely,
I mean, Hamas
but
is getting weapons and they're getting like paragliders, so presumably there are people that support.
yeah,
Presumably
yeah,
there are
yeah,
quite
sure.
powerful, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
governments or whatever it be that are trying to create and fuel organizations such as Hamas.
Yeah, so the thing is, I am sure they will try, but the thing is, if Hamas is gone and Israel initiates de-radicalization, some de-radicalization program, the thing is, who will, like, for example, if you're talking about Iran, like, who will they give the weapons or like the propaganda to? Uh, because like people who are de-radicalized wouldn't see much use of them.
Um, well, I suppose de-radicalization, like, it wouldn't be de-radicalized people. It would be. It's not just like they would like give weapons to people. They would
Hmm.
actively radicalize people.
Radicalize people, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
it's gonna be like a seesaw. Like who's better at radicalization?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and like,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure
what
who's better
reason
at
do we have to
radicalization.
think that the IDF is going to be better at de-radicalization than I don't want to really like pick on Iran, but let's just say Iran.
Hmm.
Yeah, who's to say? What reason do we have to assume that the IDF is going to be better at de-radicalization than Iran is at radicalization?
Um. Well, I can speculate that so whatever idea of a de-radicalization program is going to be, it's gonna be accompanied by those, like, sending aids and stuff like that, like helping people. One second, just give me a second. Yeah, I'm back. Yeah,
Cool.
so I was saying that the de-radicalization is going to be, like, I don't think it'll be particularly effective if they did it without, like, helping out the civilians or whatever. Um, like, imagine if someone came to your house and someone you hate came to your house and they started saying, "Oh, don't hate me" or whatever. um, I don't think that's going to be, like, particularly useful. But if the person you hate actually shows compassion to you and they try to help you out in your problems, there's a chance that you might warm up to that person eventually. Um,
Yeah, of
but
course.
yeah, so for Iran to do that, they would need, like, some kind of machinery to do, which I'm not sure they, like, unless they send in, like, spies or whatever.
Sorry, what do you mean some
To
kind of machinery?
Yeah, like, people to do that, like, maybe like they would have to, like, um, send in people to do the to help, like simply initiating a radicalization campaign might not be as effective if you like if the person who you're trying to radicalize these people against is, getting into their good books. So they would have also have to like, um I'm not sure, like, did you follow that, like?
I think so, yes, but
Yeah,
yeah, I mean,
so like
obviously, like they
someone
wouldn't be
is,
doing it telepathically, like, um, but I
yeah.
suppose, yeah, like, Iran could, yeah, yeah, I don't know how
So
feasible
what
it
I'm
is.
saying is that the fact that, like, according to my plan or whatever, um, they like if the IDF is de-radicalizing them in conjunction with like helping them and stuff like that, then they would be getting into the good books of people eventually. Um, and to get people out of that is going to be particularly hard just by a radicalization campaign. There would have to be some other steps, maybe like some campaign to portray the IDF as like monsters or something like that. So
Yeah,
maybe like some kind of campaign that. So yeah, like I think it could be the case that Iran will like try to, I'm thinking of cases like wearing fake IDF clothes and shooting at random Palestinians and stuff like that,
yeah, maybe like
in order to
something like
create.
that.
Yeah, something like I can. But yeah, like that's the stuff that they will have to do. Um, but I don't think Israel will have like a particularly hard time um, combating that.
Okay,
But
I
yeah,
think,
so yeah, I'm not sure who has the better chance of de-radicalizing or radicalizing. Um, but yeah, like there could be steps that one can take to increase those chances in one way or the other.
well, I think that's about all my questions addressed.
Hmm.
Um, can I try and put it in a summary, and you can,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
I just want to have a good summary for it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, I started, my position was that, um, yeah, because of the human cost and, lack of, yeah, okay, because of the human cost and because of the fact that I was unconvinced that Hamas wouldn't just resurface, I
Hmm.
thought that the IDF should cease its current operation in Gaza,
Hmm.
Swords of Iron. Um, but we went over, the civilian deaths, how, yes, there have been like 30,000 civilian deaths in Gaza. Obviously, that's tragic. Um, but if the IDF stops, you know, eventually there will be, there's a chance there will be that many Israeli deaths, or at least, like, certainly, essentially, certainly, there will be, like, more events like October 7.
Hmm.
Um, and we both agreed that if Israel is not going to establish a long term plan, then
Yep.
um, they should cease their current operation.
Hmm.
However, um, the we are both assuming that they will have a long term plan, and that this plan will be
Even if they currently don't have a long term plan, which they might as well
yeah,
be having
even
one.
even if they don't currently have one, they will likely form one and establish one, and that would be more effective than any kind of um, would likely be more effective than, Iran trying to radicalize. Well, the IDF tries to de-radicalize. Um, so, is there anything I've missed, would you say?
Not sure. I don't think so. I think we got everything.
All right. Look, I guess I'll keep thinking about it, but I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
you've made a very convincing case, and like, I'm just happy to concede this for now. Uh,
Yeah, for
obviously, I'll
sure.
keep thinking about it, keep talking about it, and
Yep.
if I change back, then maybe I'll let you know. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, really appreciate you taking like, an hour and a half out of your day to speak to me.
Totally fine. Yeah,
Cool.
that's
And
fine.
can I just get confirmation? Can I upload this to the internet?
Oh yeah, sure.
All right, great. Thank you.
You can tag my I have a YouTube channel as well. You can tag it
Yeah,
over there if that's fine.
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye.
Yeah.